If your conscious I is a stressed-out rider on a wild horse, and it's forced to wear an exhausting social mask while hiding its darkest flaws in a locked basement vault, then a fair question follows. How does the whole system keep from collapsing every single day? The answer is that the mind doesn't just passively take the beating. It fights back. It builds a complex, automated network of security walls, cloaking devices, and escape hatches, all designed to keep you from losing your mind under the weight of ordinary anxiety. For a long time, the early psychological establishment saw these survival tactics as proof of human weakness. But in 1936, the whole picture shifted. Anna Freud, Sigmund Freud's brilliant daughter and a fierce intellectual force in her own right, looked at the map of the mind and realized everyone had been watching the wrong engine. She took what her father treated as a helpless referee and turned it into an active, strategic general. Act 1. The strategic general takes the field. To understand what Anna Freud gave you, you have to understand the brutal family business she stepped into. In Vienna, and later during the Blitz in London, she watched her father treat the human mind as a dark, swampy wilderness. For Sigmund Freud, the real action was always deep down in the unconscious id. Anna looked at the clinical reality and staged a quiet revolution. She published The Ego and the Mechanisms of Defense and made an argument that shook the psychoanalytic world. Because the unconscious is entirely hidden, you can't observe it or fix it directly anyway. The true terrain of human psychology, she said, is the conscious I. In the 1940s, this erupted into the famous controversial discussions in London, a series of fierce, legendary debates between Anna Freud and Melanie Klein, a rival analyst who believed therapy should focus strictly on the deepest, darkest, most primitive fantasies of infancy. Anna stood her ground. She proved that when life gets overwhelming, your mind automatically deploys ego defense mechanisms, unconscious mental strategies that protect the I from anxiety, shame, and the crushing judgments of the internal critic. Act 2. The tactical inventory. Your defense mechanisms are not moral failings. They're automated programs running in the background of your brain to prevent a full psychological breakdown. But if you keep running them with no conscious awareness, they harden into the literal walls of your prison. Let me unmask the top 4 your mind uses to bend your reality. 1. Intellectualization, the cold data shield. When an emotion is too painful, too overwhelming, too terrifying to actually feel, the mind steps out of the heart and retreats into the library of the brain. It treats a deep, searing human crisis as a cold academic assignment. Picture it. A person's personal life is falling apart, and instead of grieving or sitting in the fear, they spend 18 hours a day tracking statistics, building timelines, studying the trends of their own catastrophe. It feels like control. In reality, the data is a human shield held up against raw vulnerability. Let me tell you what that looked like for me, because I lived in that library for years. When my drinking was at its worst, I didn't sit in the fear of it. I studied it. I could recite the neuroscience of the reward loop, the half-life of the chemicals, the relapse odds by the month. I read every book. I could have run the meeting better than the counselor running it. I built myself a whole private degree in the exact thing that was killing me. And none of it touched me, because that was the point. As long as I was the world's leading expert on my own addiction, I never had to be the man drowning in it. The knowledge wasn't healing me. It was the most sophisticated way I ever found to not feel a single thing. 2. Sublimation, the only healthy detour. This is when the mind takes an unacceptable or destructive impulse and channels that raw energy into something productive and socially praised. Picture it. Someone carries a deep, volatile pool of unaddressed rage, and instead of letting it explode, they redirect it. 4 hours of brutal training every morning, or a sledgehammer swung in a wood shop to build something with a frame. It's effective, and the culture applauds it, but it's still a detour. If the underlying pain is never integrated, The person becomes completely dependent on the output just to keep the demons quiet. 3. Reaction formation, the aggressive complement. When a feeling is so unacceptable to your self-image that it spikes real anxiety, the mind handles it by forcing you to perform the exact opposite, loudly. Picture it. You feel a burning resentment toward a business partner, and because your inner critic says jealousy makes you petty and small, your mind panics. So you become their loudest cheerleader, aggressively supportive, endlessly accommodating. It takes an enormous, constant expenditure of energy to keep the real feeling buried under the performance. 4. Projection, the outward blame. When the I can't tolerate a flaw or a desire inside itself, it cuts that trait out of its own self-image and pastes it onto someone else. Picture it. A person is secretly terrified that they're losing their edge, checking out of their own life, and unable to face it, they turn on their partner, suddenly convinced the other person is the one who's unreliable, lazy, checked out. Act 3. The sanitized compliance tool. Anna Freud's work gave us an incredible vocabulary for mapping daily behavior. It also caused a drift we have to look at with clear eyes. By focusing so heavily on how the ego healthily adapts, survives, and defends itself inside society, Anna Freud and her mid-century American followers accidentally sanitized psychoanalysis. They took a radical, dangerous, boundary-pushing theory about the untamable wilderness of human nature and turned it into a manual for social compliance. They smoothed down your rough edges so you could get back to your desk, sit quietly in your neighborhood, and behave like a well-adjusted cog in the machine. So when you look at your own habit loops, you have to ask a hard question. Are your coping strategies actually healing you, or are they sophisticated defense mechanisms that just help you look fine while you slowly burn out? Act 4. Weaponizing the defenses. Here's the turn of the chapter. You cannot dismantle your defense mechanisms by tearing them down. They're there for a reason. They've been protecting your sanity. The move is not to destroy them. The move is to step into the commander's tent, look at the general's map, and intentionally redirect that energy. If your mind is brilliant at intellectualization, stop using it to hide from your emotions and point that same discipline at your actual life, your sleep, your habits, your inputs, mapped with clinical precision. If your mind is brilliant at sublimation, take the burning anxiety that used to drive you toward the escape hatch and funnel it, on purpose, into something tactile and permanent. Don't just exhaust your body to outrun a demon. Use that same energy to build something real with your hands. That's the whole shift. You're not firing the general. You're finally reading the map. I can't tell you that's the answer for you. I can only tell you it was mine. Sources: Freud, A. 1936/2018. The Ego and the Mechanisms of Defense, Routledge. King, P. and Steiner, R. eds. 1991. The Freud-Klein Controversies, 1941 to 1945, Routledge. A note: this is personal memoir, not medical advice. I'm not a doctor or licensed clinician, and nothing here is a diagnosis, treatment, or cure, only an account of what worked for me. Alcoholism is a serious medical disease that deserves professional care. Please don't use anything I say to delay or replace real treatment. If you're struggling, talk to a licensed professional. In the U.S., call or text 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline or 1-800-662-4357 SAMHSA, both free, confidential, and 24/7. That's Arch and Owl. Read the whole chapter free on Substack and follow along for a new chapter every week.